Hello and welcome to Finextra TV. I'm Liam Xavier and you join us for this special edition of Predict 2026. And that's because I'm joined in the studio by a Finextra colleague by the name of Dominique Dierks, who's our Senior Content Manager. Dom, lovely to have you here.
Hi.
So a big part of what we've been covering for the last 2 years has been regulation, and especially ISO 20022. Lots of delays, lots of bottlenecks. Do you think this year could show the sort of fruits of the labour?
Would be nice, wouldn't it? I don't think so, just because, yes, ISO 20022 has been on the horizon for a very long time. And like you said, there was a lot of delays, there was a lot of bottlenecks, but realistically, we've only had the first deadline of the whole roadmap passed 3 months ago. So now we're 3 months in since the coexistence period has ended between the old MT standard and the new MX standard. And we don't really have any official data from SWIFT, but speaking to technology providers and payment processors in this space, it does sound like there's still quite a number of organizations that do rely on inflow translation. Obviously, we don't know how significant that number is, but that's definitely going to affect how well organizations are going to be able to adapt and migrate to the upcoming deadlines, because this year we have structured addresses coming up. So in November this year, unstructured addresses will be phased out. So at this moment, organizations will be really knee-deep in their data strategies and their data estates. And then beyond that, 2027, 2028, going forward, we still have E&I coming up. We have the milestones for reporting and statements, so there's still a long way to go. There's definitely going to be organizations that already will see the benefits and be able to start building these new business cases that will become available through this new, richer format. But I think those will be the organizations that really had the resources to look beyond the mandate and really holistically migrate. I think the industry as a whole in 2026, it's more going to be a year of really standardization and of phasing out those old formats and the old workarounds.
Interesting. And perhaps a slight complication, the US has been focused more on deregulation. Have you seen anything of that sort of seeping into the global landscape, and what have been the sort of major impacts that you've seen?
It's a hefty question. I'm going to start with the US part because it's been interesting. Obviously, the US has always been very market-driven anyway already, so it hasn't been a surprise that under the new administration, this push towards deregulation or federal deregulation was really re-emphasized. We're just about to publish our annual US regulation survey, and we were specifically interested in hearing about the sentiment towards deregulation this year. And what we found is that around half of organizations do see a positive impact of that deregulation would have on their organization. Though what really stood out is that I think it was only 8% that really see there's no major downsides to it. So 9 out of 10 organizations still say, okay, even if we have some benefits from deregulation, it will still come with some risks and challenges attached. And I think specifically in this year, rather than seeing actual benefits of this come through, there's still a lot of uncertainty at the moment that's going on, because a lot of deadlines have been either pushed or regulations are under litigation or being rewritten. So there's a lot of different things happening at the same time. And I think the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is a really good example of this, because the administration has made it very clear that they're looking to close the bureau, and it looks like that's going to happen in the next couple of months, because now they can't legally seek new funding. And sooner rather than later, they are going to run out of funding. So this has two implications. One is on the regulations that are currently still in the rulemaking phase. So like, for example, the open banking rule. What will happen there is very likely those will be stalled indefinitely, which means that in the case of open banking, the adoption would then move back towards being market-driven. But then on the other hand, you have the regulations that are already in effect, and those will not simply vanish, right? These will either move to other federal agencies or they will move to state regulators. And then what's going to happen, very likely, is that you really run the risk that you create this patchwork of state-driven regulation that is really going to add a lot of complexity for financial institutions and their compliance teams. So I think 2026 is more going to be a year of really trying to untangle everything that's going on and trying to figure out what this federal deregulation is really going to look like in practice. And then come to the second part of this question. I'm going to keep this briefer. I think globally, it definitely will have some ripple effects. We're already seeing it with the final Basel III implementations. The EU and the UK now also have again delayed their implementations of the final Basel III rules to 2027. But I think, or I expect, that internationally this will rather lead to reducing or an attempt to reduce regulatory complexity rather than really the straight push towards deregulation. Or at least I hope that's what's going to happen.
There's a lot there. And across this year, we're expected to see all sorts of technological things as well. So if we just sort of pull back a little bit, what do you think will be the main area of regulation this year?
I think there's two areas that are going to be really quite interesting. I think the first one comes as no surprise to anyone. That's going to be stablecoins and digital assets. I think the introduction of the US Genius Act early last year has really added some new momentum to this. So even though regions like the EU or a lot of different countries in Asia already had stablecoin or digital asset regulation in place, markets, specifically big markets, now realize, okay, the Genius Act actually really has the potential to proliferate a stablecoin that's backed by the US dollar worldwide and thus dollarization, and that can really be a threat to their own monetary policies and their own plans to develop digital currencies and to develop a stablecoin backed in their own currency. So I think it really has set off this global race to create those frameworks to bring digital assets more into the mainstream. So I think that's definitely going to be really interesting to see how this develops over this year. I think the other area that's going to be interesting is less talked about, or at least less talked about to me in my inbox, is quantum. The EU a couple of months ago have announced that they expect the first proposal of the Quantum Act to be introduced this year. And around the same time, the FCA have similar announced that they're exploring applications of quantum for financial services. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the momentum around quantum evolves this year as well.
Really interesting, yeah. Quantum is one of those ones where it'll be quite interesting to find out if it does finally arrive at some point over the year. So thanks for joining us, and well, we'll speak to you later.
Thank you for having me.